They say when in Rome. When in Poland, drink vodka. Ugh. She can't think of drinking right now. My tummy is all types of full. I was finishing dinner just before going live, actually. And then, ended up waiting 23 minutes to actually get into a game. C'est la vie. We do have a pretty awesome best of 3, though, now that we have the game. In the top left, we do have Shopify Rebellion's Byun. And in the bottom right, as the red Zerg, it is Reynor. A momentary heart attack when I thought the sound wasn't working, but it is. We're good. Imagine spending 23 minutes in BattleNet without fixing problems. Which, speaking of which... Oh, no, we're good there. Nice. So hard lead for Byun versus Reynor. Reynor going for that cancelled extractor into the 14 hatch, earlier pool. And little bits of safety, sans zillings. Byun is very well known for doing the forward 2 racks, but perhaps that period of time is now done and over with. Perhaps now it's back to more of a... Well, I'm not going to say a standard situation for Byun, because in my head, he's always going to be the guy that brings out the weirder builds. Not the Clem, who does the 3cc almost every single game, like 80% of the time, but rather a Terran player who does the forward 2 racks into a 3cc, into a forward 2 racks, into a proxy 2 racks, into a Hellbed attack from, 1990, from... and then, mech, maybe, occasionally. Maybe spamming with some cyclones. He does a lot of stuff. Very aggressive most of the time, but definitely varied. Oh, 2 base, all-ins. Yep, that's the one I wanted to mention as well, because he is definitely still the one bringing those out and actually using them effectively to take off a couple of games from the likes of a Serral, for instance, or from a Reynor. And now Reynor playing Zerg, actually playing Zerg, choosing Zerg in these open cups, is taking his training seriously. He didn't really get to train so much for Atlanta, wasn't really feeling it, and is also sick, and then was sick basically up until the day that he was knocked out, day 2. And since then, has seemingly taken that subpar result for him, of course, even if there were reasons to why it was subpar, and use it to fuel a new practice, which it's really exciting and really scary to see if you're the other players, I suppose, because we know that if Reynor's really taking a tournament seriously and puts all of his time in the practice, like only plays Zerg, no fooling around with the Protoss shenanigans, plays against a 6-man Archon team in a ZVT, which is all the stuff that he's been doing, then he can actually be the greatest player in the world, and really even play Zerg to a really stupid point, basically, like stupidly perfect almost. No perfection in StarCraft, but pretty freaking close to it, because his Gamers 8 results, I mean, Kira was playing out of his mind as far as Terran went as well. It was a battle of the best for a couple of games, and then Reynor was doing it the next 2 games, so that it looked like he was doing it as like a baseline, and Kira was the one that was trying to push way beyond his limits, So it's just saying that it's very, very scary when Reynor is practicing like he seems to have been doing the last couple of weeks, and Byun could be in a lot of trouble and thus might have to bring out a 2-base attack and really all in to defeat the guy. But we're not there yet, and I hardly doubt that type of pressure and stress is going to be felt in an open cup. Now, both of these players, I guess, playing rather dependably in the open cups. Reynor playing Europe and NA. Europe wasn't around today because of the EU lobby bug. But Byun, it always has been very reliable in the open cups. And, I mean, well, he does take them seriously. It is dime a dozen for him, I feel like. So anyway, we do have Byun going for a 3cc build with just a couple of Hellions, really a actually very macro-oriented build, so far more than I was actually expecting, but using the Hellions to be very aggressive, nice Evo Chamber block, immediately tries to go into the main base, seeing as those Lings still do not have speed. This is a usually open opportunity. But some clever building placement, good drone pulls, and the Queen's on the job with all the creep spread even down to the ramp. We do have those Hellions corralled and taken out with only killing 3 drones. Not too much of an overreaction as far as the link production as well, which I think is really important. Usually the professional Zerg players aren't caught overreacting, but sometimes they realize they're going to be jumped upon by the Hellions, go, oh shit, build like 40 lings, all of their larvae, and actually those lings, especially without speed, never touch the damn things. Speed only just finishing, so he did make a couple extra, but now the Hellion threat's gone. We're waiting a little while until the next threat's actually arriving. Those Marine numbers not high enough, no medevacs on the field, and Reynor droned after just use of 5 larvae to build those lings. So I don't know. I feel like ultimately this goes the way of Reynor. Those 4 Hellions weren't really going to add a whole lot, you know, sure, but they were immediately sacrificed. Usually there's at least a little bit more of a runaround game. Trying to kill a couple of creep tumors, threatening but not actually dedicating to the drone kills. Maybe you catch the 4th base drone on its way out, you know. And most importantly, actually, the Hellions are your safety for your 3rd CC. So if Reynor had actually made, what we could say maybe is an overreaction or a decisive action, both could be true, and made 30 lings after those Hellions were destroyed, he could have raced across the map and delayed the 3rd CC. But Byun, I think, wary of that possibility anyway, really waited a while to get the 3rd CC down location. You know, it was done. It's been done for a long time, but waited until the ball of Marines would actually stop any type of ling flood, so... Just saying. That's the dynamic that you have to worry about. But totally unimportant in this particular game, because it didn't happen. Reynor is now comfortable on 68 drones. 6 more just about to pop. That Baneling nest is on the way, but not completed. You don't really need it, of course, for the first wave, but it, you know, is easier to deal with the first wave. But you don't need it as long as you get this around. The queens are on the front line as well, and the queens indeed are. I think very important in this particular battle, would-be battle, is whether or not the queens are bulked up. We know that Reynor does separate his queens into 2 hotkeys for that creep spread, and that's great, but then if they're caught 3 on each side, these Marines slaughter them. And as you can see, even all together, yeah, it's got to be really fast to actually stop the queens from going down. 2 queens do fall. Many transfuses already used, not too many left over. And those lings, I mean, they're still looking an awfully sour, honestly. I don't think this is going to be enough. Reynor might have handled that Hellion push really well, but unfortunately just does not have the tools to actually deflect the follow-up, which was a 1-1 combat shield Marine push. Well, Reynor didn't have Banelings and didn't have his own 1-1. That is what's really killed him here. And I think it actually literally has killed him. If it hasn't straight up killed him in this game, then it has hurt him so damn much that it's basically the point, and that Widow Mine just killed almost all the Banelings that were finally created. Byun takes game 1 fairly easily. Wasn't expecting that. Expecting more of a battle of blows, but I think the super quick 1-1 did catch Reynor off guard. Unfortunately, the queens, you know, really couldn't do much by themselves, and then the ling numbers were not high enough to even go after the Marines, even if they had gotten us around, I guess, so... Baneling Nest would have made things a lot easier. That is for certain, but trying to cut that as late as possible. Because oftentimes we will see his first defense based off of pure Queenling. And just that 1-1 that might have kicked in was a surprise factor. I feel like the sound is really low. That was kind of throwing me off the entire game. I don't know why it would be, though. Very quickly into game 2, onto Golden Aura. In the top left, it is Byun. In the bottom right, it is Reynor. So Reynor, yeah, not as prepared as I thought he would be. It was my bad. I was, you know, hyping him up, not gonna lie. I was starting off a little bit biased, kind of. But I wouldn't say I was actually biased towards Reynor winning necessarily. What I was biased towards was a very gentlemanly game of which they would both, you know, go blow to blow for an extended, I don't know, 5-6 minutes or whatever. And they'd be really exciting. So, in my defense, I was just expecting a better game. Not so much that I was like, oh, I can't believe the guy that I thought was 100% going to win lost. No, I didn't think Reynor was 100% going to win. But I did expect Reynor to be quite fearsome, as all the reasons I was stating. You know, just how much he's putting the practice in. But Byun quickly taking the wind out of that particular narrative sails. just gets a very easy first game victory. Thank you for that raid, Bill Milja. Yeah, that is so much louder than the game sounds. I don't know why that would be though. My problem sounds like, looks like, not the chats though. Seems like the sound is relatively balanced. Let me know. Anyway, so yeah, Byun, he goes for this 3cc build. One of the greediest builds you can go for. Not the greediest, yeah, not the greediest, but you know, like second or third, basically. Because it's only 4 Hellions, right? And it's immediately swapping over into those Marines. Fastest 3rd CC you can reasonably get. And then into really fast double engineering bay, which I actually really hadn't caught just how fast those upgrades were until I just realized how difficult Reynor was having with that defense. And then I saw the upgrades starting up for Byun, not on 1-1, but on 2-2. And I was like, oh, shit, okay. So that certainly caused some problems. Reynor did have a little panic moment with the Hellions, but I really thought he dealt with that perfectly fine. I really don't want to blame that. Did it offset him? Possibly. Maybe that did unsettle him mentally a little bit. You know, like, oh shit, I made that mistake. Oh shit, now I'm 30 seconds to the Bailey Nest. That's possible. But now Reynor's going for a different build opener. As you can see, Ling's allowed right on in there. Now, this sometimes looks like a mistake, but I mean, the truth is, right, like that, dealing with this. Okay, you weren't supposed to lose the Marine, though, actually. I was gonna say is that if you can deal with this in the main base while having an SCV sneak onto the command center, which is exactly what Byun is doing, then theoretically, you could save the Marine, or at least, you know, as like 1 or 2 Lings are left over, no big deal, and you could only lose 1 SCV. Maybe 2, but to lose 3, plus the denied mining time, plus he messed up with the SCV going into the command center, now that definitely surprised Byun. He was definitely a little thrown off there, and again, it would be one of those questions of, not in the game, direct damage, considerable, but mentally? Is it a little, you know, now is he a little upset? Possibly, I don't know. And of course, what is the follow-up would be your next concern. So this 1 Hellion being produced before the swap off to the reactor didn't really help with the Lings so much. It did, but that's not really why it's important. It's that it went across the map and saw that there weren't any roaches on the way. As Reynor is just powering up on the drones behind this, getting speed now. So again, very late speed, but figuring that'll be okay with it. As the Queen defense was enough in the last game, as far as the Hellions were concerned, even that one going down. Both players playing off server, just as a reminder, this is the North American Open Cup, Europe versus Korea, so that might be affecting some things, but yeah, the Hellion at least got that creep to him before it died. So speed is halfway done, but Byun is going for a Hellion drop, and so while he did manage to deal with the Hellions pretty much okay last game, Reynor might have even more trouble and actually take big damage as this Ling also, oh, I thought I was going to miss the medevac, fortunately was on patrol. Sees the medevac on the way, the Queens will pull to the main base, and this actually is probably going to look a lot like last game. As the Queens, if they're in position, combined with little micro on the drones, sure, then there should be no problem. But the follow-up, again, is what's most important, so same with Byun, making sure there's no roaches on the way. Reynor would love to see if there's a 3rd CC on the way. Cannot do so as of right now. That Overlord's nowhere close to getting in there. He is seeing the lack of 3rd CC on the front lines, but we know that so often it does go into the main. 2 base attack. Byun is bringing it out, hoping to close out this series with a 1-2 punch. Medevac drop still unsuccessful, and speed is actually done. It's taken so long to really even try and hit. This is now just, frankly, completely unsuccessful, but you can always add in these Hellbats later on. Definitely save the Medevac. And Reynor, now that he's dealt with that totally and completely, could be focusing more on the actual scouting. Again, how much scouting can he really get now that the wall is completely natural? Not much. That is true. Not very much. Before that, then maybe a Ling could have slipped in, seen the single engineering bay. Maybe the timing of the second barracks, depending on when the Ling slipped in, I suppose. Actually, even seeing how fast this tank is kind of a sign, I want to say. If it was a 3rd CC after 1-1-1, unless the Terran was scared of roaches, basically, I don't think you would really dedicate to that fast of a tank. You'd be using it to swap off to all your production. Or, well, I should say most of the time you're going into reactor. What a mine, aren't you? Maybe it's not a reveal, actually. I know exactly what Byun is doing with my God vision, so might be inferring a little bit more than is actually possible, but it's actually a moot point anyway. Reynor still hasn't even seen that there's a tank, hasn't even gotten blasted by it. What he saw was lack of third CC, though, and that is obviously the biggest tell, is that initially you're like, oh, is he playing cautious again like last game, waiting for the big ball of Marines? Oh, okay, he's 2-base all-inning me. That third CC should be at least floating on over. So Reynor is picking up on what Byun is putting down. And now the question is, can Reynor defend against it? Even with the knowledge of it on the way, you only have so many things started. You didn't know from the get-go this is going to be their plan. So Baneling speed being halfway done, that is a good sign. Carapace being emphasized. You know, he didn't wait for both upgrades. The amount of gas needed for both upgrades just went right into the Carapace, and actually is going to forego melee so they can get a couple extra Banelings, which I think might just be very warranted. He certainly thinks so. Again, he's recognized as a 2-base attack. And this is with 3 tanks to start things off. No armory, so they are just regular Hellions, but still helpful. Getting right up into that choke as well. Reynor has already set up a surround, however. So that is something that is obviously good to start out with, but might not be enough. Still going to need as many reinforcements as possible. Baneling speed finishes up. +1 Carapace nowhere near completed. We got 12 Queens on the field, and they are great at tanking. So, and transfusing. Look how many transfuse that is. Jesus Christ. And that hatchery might want to get transfused there. There we go. Missing some transfuses on the Queens. However, now we do have that big surround coming in here. And I don't think Byun is anticipating that. Most of the left side getting destroyed. And on the right side, the Marines could not actually pierce through all of the Queens fast enough. And this has been completed. Byun even tapping out, knowing that he was demolished far too well to continue on in this game. And once again, another quick-ish game. We got a 1-1 tied best of 3. Last game of the series here on Alcyone. In the top right for Shopify Rebellion, he is Byun. In the bottom left, we do have Basilisk's Reynor. Reynor demolishing that 2-base attack. As one-sidingly, perhaps even more so, actually, one-sided than the first game, in which Byun, after the second push-in with the Marines, I think was pretty... It's pretty clear he was going to win. Like, the first little step in, when you kind of test the waters of the Queens to see how fast their transfusers are and how many Lings are going to come spilling forth trying to surround you, that's always a bit of a test. But then the second time he was able to do it, and Reynor was still cautious and apparently supply blocked. So I'm mentioning it in chat. Yeah, I think then Byun is like, oh, okay. These 20 Marines are going to win the game. And they did. But they still had to do a little bit of fancy footwork, I suppose, killing the Banelings and whatnot. Reynor set up the scenario in the last game absolutely perfectly and closed the book on that 2-base attack very decisively. Because it is not often, I would say, that Byun takes such a devastating loss and then just taps out immediately, actually. Like, I've seen him get surrounded and not really take the best fight initially, but then he's always a little hopeful as far as the follow-up in his Marine micro and whether or not the Zergmen have overexpended themselves building army, you know. But nope, Byun was like, whatever. All right, fine, cool. Time to go to game number 3. And on game number 3, Alcyone seems to be a preferred map for this. Forward to Rex. Reynor has gone not for those Lings yet again, although they were effective last game. And rather, I think he went for a totally typical build. Might still be going for that late speed, though. But really, I don't think that late speed has ever actually hurt him. Those Hellions are scary when you don't have speed, but he's handled them pretty well. Thank you, Zargio, for the 7 months. So, Double Reaper on the way. Possibly only 3. This is the guessing game right now. Do they add on 3 Reapers? Do they add on a 4th or even a 5th? Because he certainly isn't 3 racks, and we do have the orbital or the command center on the way. But if you add in just 1 more Reaper before you move on to the add-ons, that sometimes can be enough to kill a 3rd hatch, especially, again, if someone's going to have later speed. So the speedlings aren't available. The Queens have all of this non-creep area to traverse. Could be a ploy. Could be a ploy. I wouldn't mind it personally, but it actually is just 3 Reaper and then onto the add-on. So Reynor, I mean, should be a little scared of having to get his 3rd cancel. That's actually happened versus Clem just last week in the North American Open Cup. It did cause him a lot of problems. Lost that game, but nope. If he's worried about it, I mean, one of the things, obviously, is that you can just delay your own third hatch. Not have to worry about it being canceled or straight up killed, of course. But third CC is on the way for Byun, so he is being an awfully greedy boy behind the 2 racks, which is just the benefit of the 2 racks. The Zerg player doesn't know exactly which one you're choosing. At this point, it's obvious that it's not a 3 racks. Only 3 Reapers have appeared. But other than that, don't know if it's a factory, starport, proxies, armory, fusion core, 4 racks, or 3CC. And that's what it is. Nice little combination of units for Reynor to almost get the kill on the Reapers, actually. Oh no, there's a hop-out spot. Doy. But otherwise, gets that third hatch down. Speed is not all that much later, around 4 minutes, but it won't be very necessary, as the 3 Reapers have been dealt with, and there are no Hellions on the follow-up. I guess the speed timing doesn't really matter, so much as that you do get speed eventually for what is no doubt going to be Ling Baneling yet again from Reynor. Byun going into the 3CC, very quick double engineering bay once again, is basically setting up like game 1, obviously different openers. Basically the same threat of the early game, I would say. The 3 Reapers did not do anything. They could have threatened maybe a couple more drones in an ideal world, but they didn't really do anything. But in that first game, it was the 4 Hellions that threatened and then killed 3 drones, but overall didn't do very much. I think it's actually very similar. That Overlord is going to get 0 scouting. Unfortunately, with the amount of space still left over in the top left of Alcyone, you really can't take the lack of information as a lot of information. On a different main, I can't think of a main with a very small main right now, but in a different main, if there was no third CC right next to the main or here or whatever, then you'd be suspicious that there wasn't a third CC because there'd be so few areas to put it. But in this case, it could be, I don't know if it could actually fit over there, but it definitely could be over here because that's exactly where it is. It doesn't see the barracks either, which could easily have been all of them completed on this side too. I mean, that was just not a scout, unfortunately for Reynor. So his Ling is trying to keep a guard, I guess, kind of keep the scouting up. The Marines have already left to try and gain that map control, and this one Ling already bypassing them is fairly important. Since we're on Alcyone, there's actually no route over to the right side. It's blocked by the minerals, although... Yeah, I was wondering if you mined them out. Obviously, you could mine them out. And then you could go all the way over to the left, which is exactly what this Ling has done. But the threat of the Marines is really what's quite scary. So it's not so much that you can't sneak a Ling across the map to try and get the scout on the follow-up, as much as it is, did you miss a certain number of Marines joining on the Xel'Naga? Are these suddenly 30 Marines about to stim on top of your third hatch and you've missed it? That is the more threatening question. Now, the Ling has been able to track the reinforcing Marines fairly confidently, I believe, just kind of seeing them balling up continuously. They did not see the third CC, or the intention of it, I believe. But it was getting more and more suspicious that those Marines were stuck where they were, right? So, the fact that they retreated eventually, too, kind of all pointed to the third CC actually having been created. And this might still be a barracks emphasis, but if it was, there'd be more Marines having flowed out to the Xel'Naga at this point. There's a modest amount, for sure, but it was the engineering base prioritized. Again, extremely fast 2-2. Then we had, of course, the 2-1-1 setup, I suppose, and now we're finishing up all of the barracks production. It's also getting those Wood Mines involved. 2-2 is incredibly fast, good lord. And Reynor, once again, just emphasizing the carapace. And now getting that melee. But it's even if he got both at the same time, it'd still be a good 60 seconds behind. Good lord. It must be a terrifying spot, but the fact that we have Banelings and Baneling speed does make things a lot easier. Again, that first game, depending on a Queen Ling defense for the first defense of a push is so common, and that's what a couple of extra upgrades, could make a drastic difference in. You add in Banelings, and upgrades are still important, of course, but not if the Banelings connect right into the Marines' faces, which is exactly what happened. Byun actually dips his toe into the water and gets immediately bitten by a shark. Unfortunately, it was only his toe that got bitten off, so he can continue in this game and live his life, but it wasn't a great start. Wasn't good. Might be a little shy about going back into the water. Would not blame him, but you can't really be shy as a Terran player. You got to be on it. Although he is doing a very fast 4th CC, so the option for playing a little more defensively is there. We know Byun's not very defensive, so he's going to do the ballsy thing and go for a quad drop. Lings are patrolling around the map, though, giving a little bit more advanced notice. Creepsword is also fair distance. You know, it is still pretty close to this base, but the Ling Baneling is prepared. What am I going to pop off? But, ooh, fortunately does not get the absolute best hit, because that was close to it. And one more Win of Mine should be easily dealt with. In fact, again, that could have been so much worse. And yet the Win of Mine basically got, I think, what's okay with. You know, that Win of Mine can die content, not exactly happy. That could have been so much worse. Holy shit. 3 Medivacs still alive is good news for Byun, but not great news. Reynor's going on to 6 bases. Rich Vespian, no, sorry, not Rich Vespian, the Gold Geyser. Son of a gold minerals also available. But 81 drones already ready for Reynor as he also gets in a fairly sizable run by. And there's plenty of reinforcements as Byun's macro has also been very, very good, so that's not going to be too much trouble. But I think Reynor should feel very comfortable on his situation. And Byun now, I would say, is back to being comfortable. That little bop on the left side was kind of a sucky situation, but this was leading to a very expansive macro TvZ, and it didn't just abruptly end like the first game did. So this is what I was biased to, is this exact type of game where both players have a solid foundation. And now it's about good old control and strategy. Hive is done for Reynor, but no Hive units out in the field quite yet. We do have plenty of Ling Baneling, but only on that 1-1 versus 2-2. Some Marauders adding in that front wall as well is very annoying. And the supplies do favor our Terran. Win of Mine's trying to get some pop-offs. No drilling claws for them quite yet. So a couple of them were a bit ineffective. The hatchery will go down, but that's not the worst thing. Finally, that Win of Mine actually gets a great shot in the heart of the Banelings. Reynor still with some left over, but now his supply looking awfully low as he's going to actually lose 2 hatcheries, not just the 1. And this is still recoverable, but really I was thinking that he would still have that 5th hatchery up and running. The fact that he does not, and also his burrowed Baneling clan was just scouted with that scan, just a coincidence, puts Reynor into a very, very bad spot. I'm not sure a couple of Vipers are actually going to help him out too much here. A couple of parasitic bombs can help, but I'm actually thinking that the best thing a Viper could do is get a really cheeky blinding cloud that pushes the army into the Banelings. That is the comeback maneuver for me, not a couple of parasitic bombs that Byun's inevitably going to micro away from anyway. Oh, we do have extra command centers coming down for Byun, who really is in macro mode. 3-3's on the way. Did make his usual Byun mistake, getting that armor for the attack, but both are now on the way. And Reynor is still very far behind on the upgrades. At least got that +1 melee and +2 carapace done, but that still feels so little for so much having gone wrong in this game. Reynor is once again on the ropes, this time protecting his 4th hatch, which he absolutely needs to protect, and it is not looking good. Byun's supply up by 40 against his opponent. The Vipers, again, what exactly are they planning on doing here? Even the pre-split is denying that opportunity for that perfect blinding cloud that pushes the AI into the Banelings. Reynor does have a nice split of units off the left side prepared for such an attack, so that is good news, but Reynor's overall supply in the dumpster, trying to add in some Hydra, some consistent DPS is going to help, but is it going to be enough? No, well, maybe you combine with some Baneling shots. And now the Medivacs are just actually hanging around, as Byun was clearly focusing on the left side, of which he has also not found as much success as he was hoping. That hatchery does still remain alive, although no mining as of yet. The Marines do drop out. Baneling coming in once more to try and save the day. They will do so, and a parasitic bomb, very effective. On the right side, Byun just clearly not paying attention. He's going to lose so many Medivacs, and in the last 30 seconds, Reynor has done a fantastic job bringing this game back with the help of Byun making some mistakes, but here come the reinforcements. Byun still has plenty of economy, plenty of production, and plenty of resources. The burrow will not save the Hydras are very long. Where are the Banelings as well? No Banelings whatsoever. No witness for the Widow Mines either. And unfortunately, Reynor is not going to save that 5th hatchery, and looks like he will not be able to save the game. 30 seconds went Reynor's way, and then it quickly went back to Byun's. Byun, just a machine in the macro game here. There's that blinding cloud, that hopeful blinding cloud that would have pushed the army towards his Banelings, but it did not do so. Byun was actually controlling at that point, and mainly Hydra's not going to cut it, especially if they don't have very good upgrades. Couple of more lings might have provided enough of a buffer. Oh, and a friendly fire Widowmine shot does help again with that medevac count. But overall, Byun is the one on 5 bases. Reynor back down to his original 4. His 5th, it looks to be denied once again by a single Marauder. And the Lurkers will not be coming out in time by the looks of things. Reynor's trying to take what he can get at the time that he can get it. The reinforcements are being pounced upon by the Hive. Just a couple of friendly fire Widowmines once again, decimating the medevac count, but I'm afraid that's just not enough. Reynor unable to save his Hives at this point. No further ling production. He is out of money and out of chances. Another parasitic bomb that will be far less effective than the earlier one. Medevac was already split, basically. And Reynor down 30 supply is now only depending on those Lurkers to pop out and save his life. But we know what happens when Lurkers are the desperation plan against a Terran who is on almost 6 bases with a maxed out army and ghosts. They just don't do anything. The Lurkers try their best, but their change of pace for the Zerg is not going to be good enough. Their parasitic bomb that's not going to be effective. The Widowmines are actually doing far more friendly fire. That is the only hope we're seeing right now. But Reynor, 3 Lurkers, might save this hatchery for now. Actually won't even do that. So that is it. Byun, just a steamroller, pushing through Reynor. And moving on to the next round of this North American Open Cup. Very impressive. Reynor, no doubt disappointed. I was going to ask 7 more Terran GMs to help him out. More Archon mode! More!